How's it going, everyone, and welcome in for a midweek edition of the unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. A few of the game previews I'll go over in just a bit. I'm going to talk about Memphis and USF, a great one on Thursday night. Also on Thursday night, we have Oregon State, undefeated Oregon State against undefeated Oregon at Gill Coliseum, so we'll get into that, as well as Stanford and Santa Clara this coming weekend. The Broncos resoundingly got off the mat on Tuesday, so we'll preview that a little bit as we get into the weekend. But I want to start off this episode with talking about what we saw from Gonzaga and San Diego State on Monday night, as the Zags went in there as an 11.5 point favorites and came away with the 80-67 win, moving to 4-0 on the season. And this was not your prototypical Gonzaga win. It was tougher, it was slower, it was a grittier win for the Zags. I don't think they played their best offensive game. They still played well on the offensive end, but not as accustomed as we're used to seeing. It was the defense that came to play for Gonzaga in this one. They had some early foul trouble, though. Graham Ike got into early foul trouble. He had a couple. Actually, Ben Gregg did get into foul trouble early. He also had a couple of fouls, and so this kind of changed some of the math as we've seen recently for Gonzaga. Ike sat a fair amount in the first half, but he still came back in about midway through the first half and played well with the two fouls and was still a contributing factor. This was a great game for Andrew Nembhard. Sorry, I keep saying Andrew Nembhard. Ryan Nembhard. As he had a double-double in this one. Like, this was a game where we saw him really take command of a game, not only on the assist front, because we've seen him doing that all year long, but on a scoring front as well. He had 19 in this game. So we got to see that side of his game a little bit more in this contest as well. Dusty Stromer was great in this one. I think in stretches in the first half, he was actually one of the better players on the floor, and he didn't have to score. I think, which was one of the more impressive things that I saw, was how well he was playing defense, getting after rebounds, really just kind of being really all over the place, and being able to chase a lot of those 3-point shooters for San Diego State off the line. And Gonzaga, through this one, is they're finding different ways to win these ball games. You look at each of the 5 games that they have played to this point, because they also did get a blowout win against Long Beach State on Wednesday. They ran Baylor off the floor in night one. They had a little bit of a tougher time with the athleticism and the length of Arizona State, so they still were playing up to their normal pace, but they had to change it up just a bit, and that was a little bit more shootout style, going back and forth. You looked at what they just hammered UMass Lowell, and that one also took on a little bit more of the track meet feel. But this game against San Diego State, and not unsurprisingly, that this game ended up being a little bit more of a slower pace, drag it out, because that's the way San Diego State wants to play. And all that said, they still scored 80 points. I mean, they weren't going to be scoring 100 every single night, or at least you wouldn't expect anyone in college basketball these days to be scoring 100 every single night, even though Gonzaga is starting to make a little bit of a routine of it. But also, in this one, I think we also got to see Graham Ike. I mentioned that he started to be contributed a little bit more there in the first half, even though he got into early foul trouble. It was the second half where he really played well. Overall, for the game, 23 points, 9 rebounds. He really looked like his old self. It was funny. I was joking around with some folks, and kind of a little tongue in cheek, but there's some reality to this one, that Braden Huff had been playing so well through these first couple weeks that it almost started to make you think of like, oh, well, maybe he will displace Graham Ike because he can actually stay out of foul trouble and stay on the floor. But this is just a reminder of the fact that they have two guys at that 5 spot who are who are potential All-American caliber players. Graham Ike now is that guy, and Braden Huff looks like he is going to be that guy in the probably not so distant future if you really look at like his production level to this point. They held San Diego State at 37% from the field. I mean, Gonzaga only shot 42% in this one. They were 5 for 20 from 3. So again, not your typical outlook for the Zags, but they found a way to win this ball game. And after the blowout win against Long Beach State, they are now number 1 in KenPom. The Zags are obviously putting themselves in great position in these first couple of weeks, and they will be in likely, maybe there'll be a little bit of adjustment here or there depending on the results in the next few days, but in a very good spot at 5-0 heading into the battle for Atlantis, where they will open up with West Virginia, and we'll go over that as well as all of the other tournaments that will be highlighted and with high stakes going into the Thanksgiving Day week. Okay, so let's get started with the 3 previews we're going to talk about, and I'm going to lead it off with San Francisco hosting Memphis at Chase Center on Thursday night. So this is the start of, I think, a really critical stretch for the Dons. They are at 4-0 at the moment, and their next 5 games are against Memphis. Then they head to the Sunrise Slam, where they will take on Clemson, and then they will play either Fordham or Penn State. Then they have a December 1st meeting with Mercyhurst, non-D1 school, but then they will play St. Louis on December 5th. So 4 of the next 5 games are against tournament quality opponents, which will give them the opportunity to build the resume that they've already started as they've taken care of Boise State. They've handled their business in resounding fashion against the likes of Long Beach State, against Cal Poly, and then also against Chicago State. So they've handled what they needed to handle, and now they hit the critical part of their non-conference where it is now time to grow and legitimize what it's going to look like as we get closer and closer to conference play. And this Memphis game is going to be tough. Like, this is a very talented and athletic Memphis team. They are 3-0 coming into this contest. A lot of transfers for Penny Hardaway and his coaching staff, but a veteran group that is also coming in. They've had exhibitions against North Carolina and Alabama. They lost the one to North Carolina 76-84. They lost the one to Alabama 88-96. But of course, you don't read all too much into exhibition matchups like this, because really you're looking for some positives. You're looking for things you can improve upon. The win-loss component of that is not the deciding factor, as we have very much seen with you look back at was there any level of panic meter when Gonzaga lost to USC? Clearly, there was no need for concern with the Zags. And maybe should have been actually more concerned that USC was so happy about winning that game against the Zags when they have not really played all that well in the early part of their non-conference. Well, back to Memphis. They also are, 3-0 coming out of the gates. They have a win against Missouri, 83-75. They've beaten UNLV at UNLV, 80-74. And they also have a home win against Ohio, 94-70. This is a team that has scored over 85 points a game. They're shooting 50% from the field. They're shooting 49% from 3. They have 8 players who are playing 12 or more minutes per contest. So this is a deeper Memphis squad. Now, a lot of jokes have been made in the offseason and everything else about how chaotic this Memphis team and this Memphis program has been over the last couple seasons. And there's a lot to there's a lot of truth in what we have seen, because the running joke is that this program can't go a few days without some sort of chaos or nonsense. So coming into this one, a team that is playing well, and it all starts with PJ Haggerty, the 6'3" transfer guard who came in from Tulsa. He was the unanimous AAC freshman a year ago, preseason all-conference team this year. He's been averaging 25 points a game, 5 rebounds, and he is getting to the line consistently. He is averaging almost 9 free throws a game going into this one. 54% from the field, 45% from 3, 85% from the line. There really is there's not much you can try to pick on as far as how you're going to slow down PJ Haggerty. Now, almost in a way, and we'll get to some of the other pieces, the critical pieces that they have as well, USF has seen this, maybe a little bit of the story already this season in this against Boise State, where we saw what the strategy was let the star get theirs and let's slow everyone else down. It could be a very similar scenario here, albeit I will say that the guards for USF obviously are their strength and have been their strength for the last few years. And this might actually just play into maybe one of their strengths and might be able to slow him down at least a tad. Another guy that they're going to have to contend with is Tyrese Hunter, senior transfer coming over from Texas. Now, this is their ball handler. This is their distributor. 14 points a game, 4 assists per contest. He was second on Texas's team a year ago in assists, and he was third in scoring on that squad. 61% from 3. So 3-point defense is critical against this squad. You cannot let them get out in transition. You cannot let them find those open looks. And because much like some other teams we've seen in the past, like this is a team that can kill you from the 3-point line. So you have to make sure that you're getting out on the squads. A third guy to that rotation of shooters all around is Colby Rogers, Wichita State transfer. He started all 34 games for the Shockers a year ago, 16 points per game. He broke their single season record for 3-pointers made in a single season. So again, another strong 3-point shooter that they're going to have to contend with. Now, all that said, this is also a team that at least they're going to have to rebound well against the squad. They have a number of guys who are going to have they've averaged between 5 and 7 rebounds per game, but USF does have a little bit of a size advantage, at least on the depth front. Now, a couple of the guys that you're going to have to contend with, Dane Dainja, from Illinois transfer, 6'9" senior. He's the 7-7 guy I was referring to. He was one of only 6 guys to play all 37 games a year ago. And he also last year for them had a team leading he was shooting 68% from the field, so incredibly effective inside the paint for the Tigers. And then Musa Cisse, he's portaled around a lot, but a 6'11" senior, 8 points, 5 rebounds. But this is someone who, while he played a good chunk at Ole Miss, is where he transferred in from. 26 games, he made 17 starts, but also was averaging about 17 minutes per game. So this is not someone you're going to see in high number of minutes going into this one. So this is where I think USF can start to look at what they've done well in the early part of the season and really trying to pull off of that. Because again, if you think about big teams that they have seen, think about that Boise State squad where we talked about having Degenhart, having just the size that squad had. And my concern was whether USF can maintain its play against those teams, those sizes of teams, and they had no problem against them. So I expect USF to be able to kind of play to that strength a little bit in this one. But I do think that this is going to be fun. This feels to me like a game that's going to come down to the last couple minutes. This is a game that is going to have a lot of ramifications on what we're going to see come February and March when people start to look at teams who are going to be in the mix for the NCAA tournament and what the resumes look like. For both Memphis and the Dons, I think this is going to be one of those games where they say this was a jumping off point one way or another, and a win that they're both going to be able to say that really helped them if they do get into the tournament. Now, for USF, I do think this is going to be a game where you're going to need someone other than the normal guys to step up into a role that maybe, not to say that they're not used to, but you're going to need to get it from someone other than Marcus Williams, because you expect to get it from him, someone other than Malik Thomas, because you expect to get it from him. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more attention paid to Tyrone Riley going into this one. So I do think that he is not going to be one of the guys that necessarily is going to have that breakout game against a much more athletic team than he has seen to this point. This feels to me like what you might see is the Ryan Beasley game, really he stepping up and being able to find his spot, and because he also played very well in the game against Minnesota a year ago at Chase Center. He's very comfortable in that building. I also think that this is an opportunity where we could potentially see another big game from Guido Newberry. Just the versatility that he is going to provide for this squad. I think that he's going to have the opportunity, as a lot of the focus goes on to the guards, that he will be able to find those openings at that high post. And then also from the 3-point line, to me, it's like Newberry and Beasley are going to be the two keys as we start to see like what's going to make the difference in a win or a loss for the Dons on Thursday. Now, going into this one, I think I saw it is about Memphis is a 1.5 favorite early on on the money line or whatnot, or not the money line, but on the spread is 1.5 in Memphis's favor. It does feel right, but I do feel like this is a game that USF is going to be in all the way down the stretch. I would say right now, again, can they do it? Obviously, but I still want to lean Memphis in this contest only because this is a team that their athleticism may become one of the things that challenges USF a little bit more than we're used to seeing. Additionally, I think USF this is maybe one team that is going to be a little bit poorer of a matchup for them, because they almost look very similar in a lot of ways. The only difference is that they have maybe some higher level athleticism than what USF is bringing to the contest. So I think if I had to pick, I would take Memphis edging out USF, but I'm not terribly confident in that pick. I would say my confidence level is probably almost like it's like 55-45, leaning that direction. But USF coming out on top in this one would not surprise me at all. And if the Dons do come out of this one with a win, this is going to be a huge feather in the cap. And I think a lot more people are going to start paying attention to this Dons team far earlier than maybe we have seen even in their tournament run just a few years ago. All right, next up is the now past Pac-12 matchup, the rematch of Oregon and Oregon State. Also on Thursday night, and this is good. This is a battle of two undefeated teams. The Ducks are 4-0. The Beavers are 4-0 at Gill Coliseum for this one. The Ducks have wins over UC Riverside. They've beaten Montana. They beat Portland, but probably should have lost to Portland. Then they come out and they beat Troy by 20. This is a squad that, it almost feels like Oregon doesn't play up to its potential ever in November, ever in December. That we're waiting a long time for Oregon to actually ever play up to what many believe they can, especially when we see what their tournament success often is. They'll play deeper and deeper into the tournament in many years, but have a very poor non-conference, very poor early conference before they really start to kind of pick up speed, pick up some rhythm and some steam going into the deeper in the conference play, but then also in their conference tournament and the NCAA tournament. So early in this one, they're shooting 46% from the field. They're shooting 29% from three. They have attacked the basket and gotten to the line a lot so far this season. 22.5 free throw attempts per game. They have 5 players who are averaging double figures and 8 averaging over 17 minutes a game. So there is a little bit of length and depth to this squad. They've been on average a plus 11 in points in the paint. So this is a Oregon team that for now is relying more on its size and being able to get to the basket. Nate Biddle is one of those keys for the Ducks. 7-foot senior. He's averaging 14.5 a game. He's grabbing nine rebounds, almost 2 blocks per contest. So a big factor for Oregon in that one. This is something that I think that matchup wise, I think Oregon State will be just fine on. Obviously, the star of this one, the one everyone looks to, is Jackson Shelstad, 6-foot sophomore. Numbers aren't looking all that great right now, but this is someone who is one of the better point guards out on the West Coast. He's averaging 4.5 assists per game right now, 5 rebounds, 7 points. Again, he hasn't shot it well. He's only shooting 30% from the field, but you'd expect that to continue to get better and improve as the season goes along. Another one to really watch out for is, assuming that he actually does play in this one, is Supreme Cook, 6'9" forward, transfer coming over from Georgetown. He did miss the first few games, but did play against Troy, had 11 points, 5 rebounds in that one. So that is something to watch of, like his condition and everything else. I'd expect him to be playing against Oregon State on Thursday. But someone who's going to have a little bit more size, also that could be Michael Rataj as well. Obviously, we know Rataj has played very well to this point, 15 points per game, 9.5 rebounds. So really looking for him to continue that strong play in this one. Now, one of the things I think that Oregon State has done very well to this point, I think is going to benefit them well in this one, is that they have taken care of the basketball pretty well up to this point. The 10 turnovers a game, which is obviously a really good number at this stage. And also they've defended the paint well. They're averaging almost 7.5 blocks a game. And even if I were to take the Western Oregon game out of it, because that was a ridiculous number of blocks against a non-D1 team, they're still averaging more than 5 blocks per contest without that game. So this is something that they've done well. Again, also points in the paint. I mentioned that Oregon has been plus 11 on average in those games. Oregon State has been just as good, if not better, than they have. They've been plus 26, plus 22, plus 24. They're doing really well on that as well. So this is a team that's going to attack the basket. They're going to get inside. They're not obviously not the best 3-point shooting team, but they have guys who have been really good out there to this point. And first and foremost, is you look at Nate Kings and what he's been able to do to this point. He had 22 points against Cal State Fullerton the other night, 6 for 9 from the 3-point line. That was all of his shots, was 9 3-pointers, and he made 6 of them. He's shooting 56% from range for the season, shooting 63% from the field overall. And DeMarco Minor is another key piece to this, as one of the things that coming into the season I was a little concerned about was that he was not the best shooter. He wasn't the most efficient with that shot, and he's still only shooting 38% from the field to this point, so kind of actually on track, similar to what his career numbers have been. But he's giving you other things. He's averaging 5 assists a game. He's averaging 3 steals a game. You're getting this is the one thing that you knew you were going to get from Minor, is that you were going to get all of the other parts. While the offense can be sporadic and up and down, you're going to get the assists, you're going to get the rebounds, you're going to get that defensive intensity. You're going to get that from him. And that really has kind of been the personality of this Beaver squad early on, has been that tenacity, that get at you and really put pressure on your defense. And so this is a contest, I think, that Oregon State, if they're going to stay in this one, they're going to have to slow this down. They're going to have to drag it out. They're going to have to grind this thing out. Don't let Oregon get into a rhythm. Stay out of foul trouble. Because this is an Oregon team. If you let them get into a rhythm, they can run away, and they can run away quickly from teams. And that's where I wonder if Oregon State is going to have enough offense to really combat what Oregon has been able to do to this point. Because I almost think that the Portland game almost provided as a scare for them, because they were so much better against Troy in the game right after that. Portland, obviously, we know is a team like Oregon has no business even losing to at any point in the game, let alone the fact that they were down double digits late in that contest, had to force overtime just to get a win over the Pilots. I do think the Ducks have played better. They are a 5.5 point favorite going into the game. If I'm looking at these two, like, I would pick the Ducks to win this game, even if it's at Gill. That said, if the Beavers can slow this down, drag it out, make this almost like a fist fight, they are going to be there at the end of the game, and they will have a shot to get what would be an upset win and then move to 5-0 on the season. Lastly, Stanford and Santa Clara. Santa Clara, gone over them quite a bit in the last few days. They are a team that had a great first win against St. Louis, had a decent loss against Arizona State, had a terrible loss against North Dakota State, and then had a dismal outing against Nevada. It seemed like it just got worse and worse and worse. And then on Tuesday, what clearly seemed like a very angry Santa Clara team went out and beat UC Riverside 96-54. They held Riverside to 29% from the field. They out-rebounded them by 17. They shot 75% in the second half. They were 12 for 22 from 3. And maybe more importantly, based on trends, they held UC Riverside to 4 for 31 from 3. Maybe the most important part, more than anything, is that number. Because they had given up 15, 14, it was like 15, 12, 15, 12, 15, 15, and 9 3-pointers in their first 4 games. The fact that they held Riverside to 4 for the contest is a very good sign amongst all the other numbers that showed that they really came to play and finally showed, I think, to many, that this was the team I think we were all looking for and waiting for. It's like, where the heck was this Santa Clara team in those other 3 contests? Well, they're going to need to bring that again on Saturday against Stanford. Stanford is a team that they're coming in. They are 4-0 going into the contest as I'm recording this. They beat up on Denver by 23. They beat Cal State Fullerton by 27. They beat Northern Arizona. They beat UC Davis. UC Davis team, which actually just beat Grand Canyon tonight. So that UC Davis one actually is looking a little bit better for Stanford now. But they haven't played great teams. They haven't played good teams yet either. Denver's not that great of a team. Fullerton's not that great of a team. Northern Arizona is terrible. UC Davis, decent team. A lot of changes on the farm. Kyle Smith is in as the head coach, coming over from Washington State. this is a team now averaging 83 a game. They're shooting 36% from three. They also are a team that's going to be able to match the front line size of Santa Clara, which is usually an advantage for them. And that starts with Maxine Reynard, 7'1" center, 21 points, 12 rebounds to this point. So the front line for Santa Clara is going to have their hands full. Christoph Tilley is going to have his hands full in this one, as this is one of the key components, key matchups that they're going to have to face. You're going to have to throw in a lot of different looks on him, because I do think that Tilley will not be able to handle him on his own. Probably see a little bit of Johnny O'Neal switching off on that. Probably a little bit of Cam Tung switching off on him as well. So you're going to have a lot of different looks on Reynard, not only maybe trying to deny, but also trying to keep him out of the paint as well. One of the many transfers in for Stanford is Jalen Blake's, the Duke transfer, graduate student, 15 points per game, almost 5 assists per contest at this stage. He's shooting 60% from the field, also has been very good at getting to the free throw line, almost 8 attempts per game at this early stage. And talked about like that 3-point shooting that has kind of plagued Santa Clara to this point. A team that's shooting 36% isn't bad through the first 3 games. That's like a decent number. Like, you extrapolate that out for the whole season, that's a good number you'd want that a good team should be. And Benny Gegler is going to be one of the things that they have to watch. He's a 6'1" guard, 12.5 points per game at this stage. He's shooting 50% from 3. Again, when we look at what Santa Clara hasn't done well, it's defend the 3-point line. So making sure that Santa Clara is not giving up those easy threes and they're chasing guys off the 3-point line is going to be critical in this one, and force them inside a little bit more often, at least force the guards inside a little bit more often, which might push Reynard out if the guards have to get a lane to the basket or whatnot. Now, thinking about this game, thinking about where Santa Clara has the advantage, I do think that because they're going to get matched up and well inside the paint, this is a game where I think Santa Clara's advantage is going to be the length on their perimeter. When you think about Adama Alpha Ball, when you think about Elijah Mahai, who came in and actually started his first game on Tuesday for the Broncos. You think about Tyree Bryan, Carlos Stewart, obviously not the longest, but he definitely one of the stronger guys. Like, this is a longer, bigger backcourt for the Broncos, and this is actually where, if they play with the intensity that they played with the other night, this is a squad that could turn into advantage because of that. They can get into passing lanes, they can cause a little bit more havoc, they should be able to defend the 3 better than they have shown over the course of the season, much more like what we saw against Riverside, less so what we saw against Arizona State or North Dakota State or even Nevada. That should not be the norm. Closer to what we saw in their most recent game should be what you would expect a team who is hoping to get to the NCAA tournament, not giving up 15 threes a game. I do like this as a game that, who has played really well against former Pac-12 teams? It's Adama Alpha Ball. He had his best games a year ago against all of the former Pac-12 opponents. Remember, he transferred from Arizona. He had his best games against Washington State, against Oregon, against Cal. He saw all those old Pac-12 teams and really took advantage of that. I think he was averaging like 22 a game or something like that in those contests. So in an environment like this, with the Broncos hosting, I expect this is a game where Adama Alpha Ball could be the X factor, as he should be in many games, but this is one where he could actually step up in a big way and be the star that I think there's a lot of level of expectation that he could be and should be for this team. And if the track record shows anything, yeah, that's exactly what he'll do. He'll play well. He'll do it against those better teams, better competition. And going into this one, as much as I don't like the way Santa Clara has played the first 2 weeks, this is a game they should win. This is a game, I think, that against a coach that they beat a year ago. Let's not forget, again, I mentioned that they played Washington State a year ago. Kyle Smith obviously was the head coach over there. This Bronco squad took care of business against them, largely with the same group. So with a similar scheme, likely for the Cardinal, than they saw when he was with the Cougars a year ago, I would expect that Santa Clara is going to know how to match up well to this, even if there's different personnel. And this is an opportunity for Santa Clara to, again, continue to build off and get off the mat, because they have a large hill to climb if they hope to get back into the tournament conversation, as those 3 losses did not leave a good taste in anyone's mouths about how it all happened. But a 40-point win in the aftermath of that is a good first start. And another addition to that would be getting a very good win against a Stanford team that they are more than capable of beating. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of the unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. A few different changes. Just FYI, if you have been starting to make the migration over to Blue Sky, same usernames over there, so be sure to follow along on that channel. Not leaving Twitter quite yet. That will be a work in progress. As if the fans go, I go where they go. So that's kind of the way that's going to work. I will continue to post to both. But if you have chosen to move over, follow same accounts at Post by Zach, at unofficial WCC Pod on Blue Sky. Well, that'll do it. Thanks for listening, everybody, and I will catch you later.